What's up, YouTube? Making a video from the garage now. This is my dad's really old Honda HR21 mower, and I'm gonna be trying to revive this thing and bring it back from the dead. I want to say this one's a PXA. There were push mowers, which this one is, and self-propelled ones, and also whether they had points and condenser ignitions or electronic ignitions. So this one appears to have an electronic ignition coil, but yeah, this is still a push mower. So it's got the throttle lever here. I think this cable's hopefully still okay as long as it's manipulating the carb, but this blade lever is seized here. Anyway, I was 12 when this thing locked up, so that was probably 2002 or 2003. Of course, it's 2025 now, so that's more than 20 years since this has been running. It's been sitting in my parents' shed. I just got this thing over to my house the other day, and my dad gave me this one too. This locked up so bad that the pull start was completely stuck and I couldn't get the rope to come out at all. So there's three 10mm bolts here. So I'll take this off first. Alright, so I got those bolts out. A little 10mm pull start comes off. Now this might need some lubrication on its own. But then there's the nut there for the crankshaft. If I can get a breaker bar or something on this, maybe it'll turn over by hand. So just for safekeeping, I got this little bucket on my truck. Gonna put all the parts in here. I took the air box off camera, so I didn't show that. So this seems to be a 19mm. So I got this on here and trying to rotate this by hand. It still feels kind of tight. I think it might have compression still though. And then it didn't have oil in it, so I put oil in it and I got a plug for it. I don't know if it's the right plug. It was just a Champion one I was able to find at Drug Mart. So then I noticed mice got to this thing. There's some mouse nest fuzzy crap under this cover here, and it needs tires. I think they're 7" for the front and 8s for the rear. This is one of the original tires and they just completely dry rotted and split apart, so that's not any good anymore. And there's a 10mm bolt here in the airbox with a washer. Then on the back, it's probably hard to see, right here and here there's little studs, and I took off two 10mm nuts, and then this slides this way a little bit and it might come off. Alright, it was not easy to get off. There's this little crankcase breather hose right there that goes on the back of this little air box above the carb, and that's all cracked and broken there, so I don't know if that can be replaced or not. So then to remove this main top cover, it looks like there's 2 bolts on each side. I'm assuming they're 10mm. Yep, it's ridiculous with all the mice. Look at all this. Like right up against the flywheel, all up under the flywheel. This is the governor for the carb. It's all mouse nest. And then when I took the 4 screws out to remove this cover, I think 3 of the 4 were the same length, and this longest one went on the front right side in here. So here's the old breather tube. Again, it just goes right into the crankcase where that hole is there by the fuel shutoff. I think even the throttle cable was a bit gummed up. I just put little spurts of PB Blaster on the linkages here from that throttle cable on the shifter there. This kind of sprung back. I think this is actually looking pretty good now. I sprayed some PB Blaster up underneath at the opposite end of this throttle cable. And it looks like we're getting the full movement down here. So here's off, low and high, choke. I can't move this at all, it's completely frozen. Oh, here's under the deck. Don't know if you can see, this is essentially the left side of the mower, but the cable is up in there. You can see it right there. But it's beneath the blade and the entire clutch system in there, so it's probably not so easy to replace. Well, now it's Sunday, April 27th. We're back. I just removed the pull start again and sprayed some PB Blaster in here where the spring is, so I kind of freed up the pull start rope a little more. So hopefully it'll be a little easier to pull on. I also broke out one of these little tester things to test for spark. Alright, let's take a look at the carb bowl. It's a 12mm. That's not even coming off. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's kind of dirty. Float. Yeah, it's all crusty in there. I'll have to take a closer look myself. I put a little bit of gas in the tank, but I don't see gas actually getting to the carbs. This is the throttle cable. It goes in here, but from underneath to the linkage from underneath and behind the groove in there. And then these two bolts, the shorter one is on top. Really long one is at the bottom down here by the muffler. And then there's another bolt right down here. These are all 10mm. And then the cable housing body goes inside this bracket to hold it. And then the fuel line's coming out here from the tank. And then the governor, the little linkage thing goes underneath the plastic piece and threads into that hole there. So it goes down in like that, and then this goes back on top like that. Oh, this is crazy. I already almost messed this up a little bit. This butterfly valve on part of the carb got bent, so I tried to flatten it back out on my anvil, and the screw stripped out, so I had to cut a screw that fit, and hopefully I can fit this back together, but it's a pain. Hallelujah, it's back together. But at the same time, goodness gracious, I had to just find a random screw with the same thread or whatever and use one of these guys to cut it to size and make it fit. But yeah, this whole carb was gummed up this side and in here, this part here. This is where the spring goes on for the high and low idle to adjust the RPM. I think the governor also hooks in here too. Now it's, I don't know, what's the date today? Saturday, May 3rd, I think. I'm skipping quite a bit ahead, but I got the flywheel pulled off. There's the wire down here from the engine stop switch that's broken and all frayed. So I don't know if the mice chewed through this, but see, this is in rough shape here. But this wire would go in through a small rubber grommet in the side of the engine, and it would go up through here. And I'm pretty sure it has to connect to this exciter coil somewhere. I think it's like the primary. And there's even acorns and crap in here, so I'm gonna blow this all out with compressed air. But those parts are here. I removed the 3 bolts to take the pull start off again. Undid this tank, and then there's 3 other 10mm bolts inside that cup part. So you take those 3 bolts out, then that plastic part with the fins on it comes off, and then a 19mm nut on the flywheel, and then you pry that off. And I slightly broke this corner of metal off trying to pry the flywheel out, so I'm not too happy about that, but it's kind of just a corner piece, so hopefully it's still fine and not affecting the assembly, because the tank bolts on here, and then this corner just kind of sheared off a little bit. So the rubber grommet is here. You clean this out, and there's another chewed up wire here that's in really bad shape. There's a rubber grommet here. So I imagine this is one of the wires from this CDI ignition module. And the red and black are going up here into this exciter coil. But yeah, this wire's chewed up, so I don't know if this was running the whole way across through here or what. Alright, I've taken off the CDI electronic ignition module. We might be in luck here. So I managed to fish the broken wire out of this rubber grommet, and the wire itself actually has a crimp connector that disconnects from here, similar to the engine stop switch over here. I might just be able to splice a new piece of wire onto this. But yeah, that's the only wire that looks to be broken and chewed up. Like, these ones here seem okay. But yeah, luckily there's also generous lengths of wire here. And then this kind of just fits over top and hooks on with this guy here. I think I need to grab the other end of the broken wire down here from the safety switch. There's really not much left of that, like, at all. I gotta see if I can fish this wire through, and then I might have to solder the other end in the garage here. Alright, managed to fish this wire through the first grommet here. And there's my splice with heat shrink tubing. So that will reconnect into here with the crimp connector. So press that in until it clicked. And then just run this back through. Might need to go underneath this exciter coil and over to here in this little wire restraint thing, and then out through that rubber grommet. But I'll probably have to bring my soldering iron into the garage to fix it, or, you know, to splice the other end. But hopefully I can just bolt this back on now. That's all put back now. I got our plug wire, of course. Okay, so now I've got that routed under this exciter coil around here. So hopefully it's out of the way of the flywheel. Then in this little hold down thing. And then the rubber grommet is right there. And then solder the other crimp connector on and plug it into the shut-off switch. So then I'll have to create another splice down here. Alright, well, that's all spliced in there. Put heat shrink tubing over this part too. Kind of ugly, but hopefully we can tuck it up under here and it's not too in the way. Might just blow this out one more time and then I think we can put the flywheel back on. Although I haven't actually looked at the underside of the flywheel yet to inspect the condition of the magnets. Yeah, there's a lot of rust all over this thing, so I think I'll at least try to take the wire wheel to these magnets a little bit and clean up some of the surface rust if I can. I think that looks decently cleaned up. Look at that. Interesting. Well, I guess that's the woodruff key, so hopefully it just stays in there and I can get this flywheel back on. Alright, I think that's it. Now I need the 19mm nut. Where did I put that? Oh, it's down here. Thread this on by hand. And then get my 1/2 inch impact drill. We'll zip this back on. Now to reassemble the rest. So next would be this plastic disc with the fins on it, but this looks pretty nasty underneath. I wonder if I can clean this up. That's all just from the rust on the flywheel, I'm sure. Alright, luckily that all cleaned up easily. Now I just noticed something. This part is actually indexed, because I saw there's extra holes in here earlier. So this kind of only fits in one way. There's the two little nubbies on there, and those go into these two holes on the flywheel there, so that's locked in. This little cup piece goes on. This is also indexed. That's got the two holes in here also, here and here. So this also goes on only one way. I think that's good. And then these three 10mm bolts go in. And these are actually in there kind of tight, so I need 2 hands to tighten those down. Alright, that's all put back, and then I've got this top cover again. Need to be careful of the fuel line I put down here. Well, now it's some time later, yet again. I've had this thing apart and put back together so many times, I've really lost count now. But I found a more significant problem that is definitely a culprit as to why this won't start. So I just pulled off this head cover. There's 7 bolts here and some additional smaller 10mm bolts holding other things together. But the 2 valves here were completely stuck open. And they weren't moving, so that can contribute to a lack of compression, preventing the whole thing from being able to start. So the only penetrant I have on hand now is PB Blaster. So when these were open, I just shot some of that in there. But to begin with, I was only seeing the piston itself moving. So I shot some PB Blaster in there. This bottom valve was kind of stuck open, and then I'd lightly tap on it with just a small hammer like this, and it would kind of just pop back in. So then I had to apply pressure on it with my thumb while I turned this over a few times for it to work normally again. But hopefully the push rods are okay. But now I'm going to need to clean all the carbon buildup out of here, so I might need to just spray it down with carb cleaner and then just rotate this around until everything's closed, and then maybe just take a wire wheel to this to get all those deposits off as best as I can, because I definitely don't want any of the debris from the wire brush or all these deposits getting into the valve train. But it definitely needs cleaned. Alright, got that cleaned up, blew it out with compressed air, got the bolts back in, well, the main 12mm bolts, torqued them to like 20 foot-pounds. I couldn't find like the exact torque specs, so I just went with like 20 foot-pounds and tried to go every other bolt since there's 7 of those. I gotta put these 10mm ones back in. And then reassemble with the engine cover and the airbox and fuel lines and breather hose and all that stuff. And then maybe we can actually see if it'll finally start. Alright, I think it's mostly back together except for the air cleaner and stuff. But I feel a lot better now that the valves are free. So I'll just try to roll this thing outside and we'll see what's going to happen. We're so close. I put more gas in it. After all that, I still don't know about all the idle screws and adjustment stuff. Or if the carb's still plugged up a little bit. I gotta see if it'll restart. That's probably just burning all the penetrating fluid I put in there. Baby. I can't believe I got this running again. It's kind of surging a little bit at the higher speed, but seized no more. I kind of remember it surging a tiny bit at the higher speed when I was a kid. But wow, I can't believe I got this thing running. Holy crap. It's just been down for so long. But yeah, the next order of business is getting this blade clutch going, because that's totally seized up too. But yeah, and then we got this original bag in here, and well, it's not one of these, it's somewhere else in the garage. Excuse me. But the mice kind of chewed some holes in it, so I'll have to order the fabric and replace that with the original hardware. Give this a big thumbs up for sure. The rear tires, for whatever reason, are really hard to find. Every website has them back ordered, and I think one of the sites I tried to order them from canceled my order, so that's kind of a bummer. I'll have to double check on that and see if I can get rear tires from anybody. Now it's August 17th, quite a bit later. This thing still isn't 100% perfect, but I've actually been mowing with it. So the cable for the blade clutch is completely seized, and all I did was just remove the return spring underneath. So I'm able to start it up and it runs the blade, even though it should technically just idle, and then engage the blade with the lever here. Put this door back on. I have the original discharge attachment, but it doesn't stay in place because some of the hardware here is missing, so I can't really use that as it stands. And then I actually managed to find proper new old stock rear tires on eBay, so I've got correct rear tires on it, because those are really hard to find. And I don't think I even got them in a set of two. I think I bought them individually, but I managed to find those on eBay. And what else? Then I also on eBay I found new old stock replacement cloth, so I replaced the cloth on the bag here, so I've just been using it with the bag, and that's been nice. And then I think all the other stuff is mostly covered in the video for the most part, and then I'll have to insert some clips from my phone as I was working on this. And then another issue with this is that the carb is leaking fuel, and I already replaced the gaskets on it, but it's still leaking or dripping, so not too sure what I can do about that just yet. But it's got the fuel shut off, so I just turn that off when I'm not using it. And then it's kind of hard to start when it's been sitting or whatnot, just because the carb's probably not getting enough fuel or something, but it still does okay though. But this is just really nice because it's made in Japan and the deck is aluminum. So yeah, it still starts up and runs, and then all that chatter you're hearing is just the blade spinning because it's constantly engaged since I removed the return spring. And I've got all these parts up here, so I don't know. Somewhere I think I bought a cable kit that might have been for like a bicycle or something, and I was thinking of seeing whether I could route something from here to underneath where the return spring goes in to see if I could get this lever to operate, but I haven't gotten that far yet. So anyway, that's pretty much everything. It's really hot out here, so thanks for watching, everyone. Give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. See you in the next one. Take care. Oh wait, now the blade's spinning because I disengaged the return spring. That makes sense. Yeah, I still got work to do. Got a new bag and put it on the original hardware stuff.